Okay, so remember this video? Alright, so let me just apologize in advance because this video is going to be a little bit of a downer. As the title implies, I'm going through, again, another little bit of a rough patch. Yeah, alright, so clearly I wasn't in a very good mood that day. That whole week for that matter. And that kind of carried on into the next week as well. But with a lot of help from my family, I kind of managed to work my way out of that headspace. So I wanted to revisit that and just document how that went down so that when I'm going through those emotions again in the future, which is guaranteed to happen, I'll have a little roadmap to work my way out of it. Alright, so first things first, I need to make an amendment to a statement that I made in my very first video about dealing with negative emotions. I initially made this claim, and I don't think, at least for me, that the solution will be any different. It will just be much harder to see. Basically, I was saying the intensity of the emotions will change, but the solution will largely remain the same. Well, surprise, surprise, I was wrong. At least for myself. Turns out I'm gonna have to keep adding or dropping coping mechanisms depending on the context of the situation. It's like having a toolbox that you constantly add or remove tools from depending on the job that you need to get done. And when I put it that way, I feel like a complete idiot for basically suggesting that you can always use the same tools, aka the same coping mechanisms, for every single problem that you come across. This is why I'm always saying not to listen to me, because I'm not smart. I graduated high school with a 2.7 GPA. I don't know why I just told you that. Maybe it's because I'm not smart. But anyway, like I said, different tools for different situations. So going back to that video, I was feeling upset because I'd made a sacrifice that resulted in me losing a lot of the personal progress that I'd been making. But that isn't really an accurate portrayal of what happened. I'd made the sacrifice, sure, but that wasn't the reason that I lost progress. The decisions I made after the sacrifice were the real causes for the downfall. Now, originally, I didn't think it was necessary to share the details of the situation because they're pretty specific to me. And I felt that the overarching concept of making a sacrifice in order to make progress and having that completely backfire and leave you in a worse off position than when you started was something that literally every person on this planet has experienced, and is something that I think most adults have learned to deal with. But now I'm thinking that if I want to give myself an accurate roadmap of how to get out of those feelings, I probably need to give myself an accurate account of how I got into them in the first place. So I'll try to make this short, but brevity isn't what I call a strong suit of mine, so this is probably going to be way too long. Apologies in advance. Alright, so basically I'd been having digestive issues, and one thing that always helps me when I'm having these problems is fasting. I had previously done a 36-hour fast and a separate 60-hour fast that had helped me overcome some mild acid reflux and some other metabolic problems. But I still felt like my body wasn't running as efficiently as it could be. So I decided I wanted to go for an 84-hour fast. Quick disclaimer, this is not advice. As previously stated, I, Fif Badaki, am an idiot. If you are experiencing digestive issues, please speak to a medical professional, or at least someone who didn't graduate high school with a 2.7 GPA. So I was making all of these plans for the 84-hour fast when I woke up one morning and realized, you know what? This would be a perfect time to start. And while that was circumstantially true, the timing couldn't have been worse, because in 3 days we were going on a family vacation where literally the unhealthiest foods would be my main sources of sustenance. I'm talking sugary cereals, pancakes, ice cream, s'mores, and the greasiest, fattiest, but also the most delicious Nigerian food this side of the Mississippi. I don't know why I decided to use that phrase, but it felt appropriate. But you get the picture. Greasy, fatty, delicious Nigerian food. But despite knowing that this was about to be my nutritional reality for 3 days, and despite my best efforts to talk myself out of what I was about to do, something inside me just wouldn't let me eat. So I ended up doing the fast. And as you would expect, we got to Ocean City and I just began
mercilessly devouring all of this unhealthy food.
I mean, it didn't even make sense. Ice cream on my pancakes, s'mores in my cereal, and of course, greasy, fatty Nigerian food. I mean, this was just the epitome of overindulgence. And at the time, I justified it to myself, and I don't think I was way out of bounds. Basically, I told myself that this was the reason that I fasted, so that I could enjoy myself on this little vacation. We weren't in the heart of Ocean City. We were a solid 20 minutes out in this very nice, secluded area. And so yeah, I could have technically made the drive into town, found a nice organic market, and picked up some fruits, roots, and veggies, my usual diet. Or I could do none of that and just enjoy the food that the aunties brought and treat this like, you know, a vacation, even from my diet. So that's what I did. and I thought I was doing the right thing. It all made sense. Fast for 3 days so that you can take full advantage of the next 3 and enjoy yourself. And I did just that. I enjoyed myself until I got back. And that's when I had to take stock of all the damage that I'd done. In just 3 days of enjoyment, I had gained more weight in 3 days than I'd lost in the last 2 months by exercising 5 days a week and consuming a diet of mainly fruits, roots, and vegetables. 2, completely ruined my sleep schedule. I don't know if this is the case for most people, but my sleep consistency is directly tied to my diet. And I had just gotten to the point where I was consistently able to sleep through the night. But now I was back to waking up every few hours, 4 hours at a time. 3, drastically reduced my exercise capacity. This may be a little bit of placebo, but my reps per set and my cardiovascular ability both decreased substantially in that 1 week period. 4, my digestive issues. The entire reason I wanted to do this fast in the first place remained unsolved and were potentially made worse because of all the unhealthy food I just consumed. So I'm looking at the damage and I'm kicking myself because this was exactly why I tried to convince myself not to do the fast before the vacation in the first place. So why didn't I listen to myself? And that's what I was alluding to in my last video when I said I felt betrayed. Again, I don't know by who, but it still didn't entirely feel like me. Like I would legit go to the fridge and set out a plate. And right before I would dig in, something would be like, nah. And then I'd go up to my room all salty and start punching the air like, why am I doing this to me? So what did I do? Well, I went to the smartest person I know, my sister, and she did what she does best and empathetically dropped some truth bombs on me. Emphasis on empathetically. Basically, she laid it out for me that even though the odds were against me, I still had complete agency on that vacation. I could have easily hopped in the car and drove down to the organic store and picked up some healthy food for myself, but I chose not to and then went on to justify that decision. Again, she did this in much kinder and much more understanding words, but the message was basically that. And now, in hindsight, I think she was absolutely right. But I didn't accept that at the time, and quite frankly, I still haven't accepted it because I was and am so upset that I was even in that losing situation in the first place. Like, picture someone walking through the desert for 3 days until they come across a random little restaurant that's on its own. So they walk in and they're like, hey, can I get some water? And the waiter responds, sorry, all we got is soda. If you want water, you're gonna have to head back out there and walk another 20 minutes to the next restaurant. They got water. Now, if I try to empathize with that person walking through the desert and put myself in their shoes, I'm telling that waiter to get an IV and inject that soda straight into my bloodstream because
I need hydration and I need it now.
And in my mind, that's basically the situation I was in. Like, I just got out of this food desert and landed in Ocean City, where all of my favorite foods that I've been abstaining from eating for the past 2 months are laid out in front of me, and you expect me to say no to that for a less satisfying, albeit much healthier alternative? I already used this in my video about the system, but yo, in my best Randy Jackson voice, yeah, that's gonna be a no from me, dog. But unfortunately for me, that's exactly what I needed to do if I wanted to avoid the consequences that I laid out before. And the reality is that even though I accept that that's what I needed to do, I'm still salty about it. And I don't know when that's not gonna be the case. So if someone else was watching this, I could imagine them saying, well, how about next time you just resist that weird urge and don't go through with the fast before the vacation? And that's a completely valid thought. But the problem is that this wasn't the first fast that I'd done. The previous 2 happened the exact same way, where I didn't plan it, woke up one morning realizing that the time is now, got super upset because thinking that you're gonna eat and then not getting to eat is one of the most frustrating experiences in life, but then accepted my fate, went through with the fast, and came out the other end with something to show for it, e.g. no more acid reflux and clear, distinct metabolic improvements. In the other video, I described it as getting to the next rung on the ladder. And this time, one of the thoughts that got me through this 84-hour fast was that this was exactly the way it happened before. And those times, I got to the next rung. So after this fast, I'll probably get to the next rung too. So when the complete opposite happened and I fell off the ladder, I did what any emotionally immature person would do. I threw a temper tantrum. But yeah, that's why I don't think the solution for me would be to resist that urge to fast. Because again, 2 out of those 3 times, that urge got me to the next rung. And that 3rd time, it very well could have done so again if I didn't screw it all up. So ultimately, in the end, I only have myself to blame. But that still doesn't make me feel any better about being put in that losing situation in the first place, you know? To be perfectly honest, the anger that I feel towards that is still with me to this day, and I haven't found a way to deal with it. That's why this is probably only going to be part 1 of Negative Emotions 2, the Aftermath. Part 1, Negative Emotions 2, The Aftermath. Part 1, Negative Emotions 2. But yeah, the reality is that anger manifests in my daily life and interferes with everything that I do. The only reason it hasn't completely overwhelmed me, like it usually does, is because it's been 2 weeks and some of those consequences that I suffered for eating like a pig are only now starting to resolve themselves. And that progress has been motivating me. So basically, by just continuing to move forward through that anger, I've managed to start getting back to where I was before I fell off the ladder. But that's not enough. Like, if I was talking to someone who was experiencing a similar kind of anger, I wouldn't tell them, just keep going, which is what I'm telling myself right now. That may be the truth of what they need to do, but I don't think that advice would help them to actually keep going in that moment. Like, I would rather be able to say something to them in that moment that would alleviate the intense emotions that they're going through so that they can just keep going. I don't know if that even makes sense. But anyway, like I said, this is probably only going to be part 1. Part 2 on anger, hopefully coming next week. But yeah, that's going to be it for this one. As always, thank you so much for hearing me out, and I truly wish you the best going forward. I hope you have a deep toolbox of coping mechanisms so that these emotions don't overwhelm you. I know I'm trying to get there, but alright, don't let me drag this out for too long. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Be easy. Peace.